Hi, I'm Movie Man. I'm an octopus who reviews movies, and today's review is going to be on. This was a movie which I definitely thought looked quite interesting. I mean, I've watched plenty of shark movies during my time, and I've enjoyed a few of them, but none of them live up to the classic that is, you know, that certain shark movie. Um, but here's the thing with this movie, it's a shark film, but it's not just that. You're combining it with also the idea of, this serial killer kidnapping his victims and one of his victims facing off against him, Like, it definitely seems like, a really interesting premise combining sharks with serial killers. That's something that could be really interesting. So, this was definitely a movie that, I was looking forward to watching. And, also, since I just mentioned, that certain shark movie, you obviously know what I'm referring to. That little old film called Jaws? Well, Jaws just so happens to be turning 50 years old this month. Yeah, that's right. Jaws, the movie which made an entire generation of people scared to go in the water, is turning half a century old this month. And well, there doesn't really seem to be any signs of, a re-release for Jaws at the moment. I suppose if there's nothing coming, which I think that's a little weird, given that it's such an influential movie, but anyway, for now, I suppose this movie will do as, our way to celebrate 50 years of Jaws, but anyway, so as I said, I was interested in watching Dangerous Animals, and so the movie came out there last week, came out over a week ago now, but I went to see it there for myself just about 3 days ago now. I went to watch the movie for myself in Man Point, and having watched Dangerous Animals for myself now, I can say that while this movie is not amazing and definitely nowhere near as good as Jaws, I still overall had myself a pretty fun time with this movie. So, getting further into my thoughts on Dangerous Animals, first off, the cinematography in the movie is actually really good. I don't imagine that this movie really has that big of a budget, so I will say the cinematography for a movie like this is actually really good. Given that the movie is set in kind of this beach area out in Australia, I think there's actually some genuinely really good shots. There's plenty of kind of overhead shots. We see these shots when we're like out in the water and we see like the boat out in the water and stuff. Yeah, I honestly think a lot of these shots are actually really nice, like genuinely very visually pleasing shots. I do have to give some props to the cinematographer for this movie because they genuinely did a good job, like, when it comes to capturing some of these shots, and there's a good effort made in terms of, like, getting you to kind of feel like the scope and kind of the scale that our main character is in and stuff. Yeah, I thought overall the movie was shot very well, especially for a film with a low enough budget. So yeah, the cinematography is good. I think the editing in the movie is pretty good as well. Like, I think, it's a well edited movie, and it overall keeps up a good momentum throughout its runtime. Like, it does well kind of in terms of, keeping the story afloat. Pun not intended, or okay, fine, pun intended, yeah. And yeah, overall, I think like it's solid editing, and it keeps you like in track with the story and stuff. So yeah, really I have to say is that the editing in the movie is good. Now I will say the pace in this movie is pretty good as well. Like, this movie isn't really too long. Like, it has a runtime of an hour and 38 minutes, which, isn't like too long of a movie. And yeah, overall, I do think there's a decent pace in the movie. Like, the film kind of doesn't really feel too long, and like, it does like a solid job in terms of like, getting to like all these different plot points and kind of establishing everything in the story. Like, the film actually does a good job of kind of establishing kind of who everyone is and kind of what's going on before like we actually get into the nitty gritty of it. It doesn't feel too long either. Like, eventually the movie gets to all that and stuff, and we basically like go through like the plot and stuff, and like overall it's a solidly paced movie. If I have any complaints, like, I feel like there's some points where the movie can feel maybe a bit too long. Like, I don't know, I felt like there were certain scenes that maybe felt like they went on for a bit too long. Even though, like I mentioned already, that it does a good job of establishing everything, I felt like maybe some of it was a bit too long. I feel like you honestly could have cut down some of it, but nonetheless, overall, in spite of that, I think like the film does a good enough job, like, in terms of how it's paced and stuff. So yeah, overall, I think the pace in the movie is good. Now, in terms of the sound and music in this film, like, there's definitely some decent sound effects in the movie. Like, we hear like a lot of really nice sounds, like the sounds of like the water, and like the sounds of these sharks when they're actually like biting at people and stuff. I think overall it's done pretty well. Like, and I think he overall is quite effective in how it tries to get things across. And I think the music in the movie overall is okay. Like, I'll be honest, it's not really like all that memorable of a score in my opinion, but I mean, like, it's okay. It's not really like one of my personal favorite aspects of the movie, but I mean, like, it's standard enough for like kind of what the movie's getting across, but like, I feel like maybe it just could have been a bit more memorable in my opinion. So I think overall the sounds and the music in the movie is okay, but definitely nothing spectacular. But anyway, in terms of the characters and the performances, there's kind of really two main characters that the movie focuses on. Like, we have our main protagonist, Zephyr. And honestly, I think she actually makes for a really good protagonist. Like, I really liked how the movie actually delved into her character and kind of her past and stuff. Like, she actually felt like a well-rounded character, and I think it actually really helps you in actually like rooting for her survival. And I have to say, Hassie Harrison, I thought she did really good in this. Like, she actually felt believable as this character, and I thought she was honestly like a badass in this role. Like, this is the first time I've ever seen Hassie Harrison in anything, I believe, and I thought she did a really good job in this. Yeah, honestly, I really liked her as Zephyr in this movie. And then, of course, we have the other character, like the other major character in this movie, our main villain, Tucker. And I have to say, he was a really fun villain. Like, I mean, he is genuinely a really disturbing villain, like, in terms of how, he gets his kicks and stuff, and, like, he really stands out from, like, a lot of other killers in movies in terms of, like, what his objectives are, what he actually does to his victims. And, like, he made for, like, a really fun villain, like, like, he's really creepy, but then there's also this kind of element of fun to him as well, like, just in terms of how disturbing he is, and he definitely makes for a very memorable villain, alright. And, like, I have to say, in terms of, like, the performance from Jai Courtney, because here's the thing, I've seen Jai Courtney before in, like, kind of a few blockbuster films from, like, the mid-2010s or so. Like, I know he was in Terminator Genesis and Suicide Squad and I think some other movies as well, but, like, from what I've seen of him, he's an actor who I've honestly never really been that impressed with until now, because, like, I mean, to be fair, a lot of these movies that he's starred in before are not that great, but, like, yeah, he's never really been, like, that great of an actor in any of these movies. I feel like a lot of it just could be down to how poor the writing is in a lot of these movies, but yeah, he's definitely never really been an actor who I've, been a huge fan of, but I have to say though, his performance in this movie as our villain Tucker, this is without a doubt the best performance that I've ever seen from him. Like, he does really well in terms of, like, actually really making this a very fun villain. Like, he definitely really hams it up in this role, and you can just tell he's having a ton of fun. Like, he does really well in terms of making Tucker a genuinely creepy character. Like, he'll go from, like, being, like, all friendly and stuff one minute, and there's even some points where he's actually singing, like, Baby Shark and stuff in a really disturbing way. He'll act all friendly one minute, only to then, like, cut someone's throat the next. Like, he's definitely a very memorable villain, and I thought Jai Courtney was really good in this role. As I said, this is the best performance I've seen of his, so yeah, I thought he honestly did really well in this movie. And, like, there is, like, a few other smaller characters in the movie, but really kind of Zephyr and Tucker are kind of our central two characters. The only character really worth mentioning other than the main two is Moses. Yes, that is his name, Moses. And he basically serves as Zephyr's love interest. Like, he was alright in the movie. Like, he definitely didn't get as much depth as the main two, but he kind of has his own subplot where he's kind of trying to look for Zephyr after she goes missing, and he definitely does become more involved in the plot as the movie goes on, and I thought he was overall a decent character, and I wasn't like a huge fan of his love story with Zephyr, but I mean, I thought it was okay. But yeah, overall, we had solid characters in this, and of course, like, our main two in Hassie Harrison and Jai Courtney, they really, like, carried the movie for sure. So I thought the two of them were really good in this. Now, in terms of the plot of the movie, now I already mentioned, this movie has a really interesting concept of, basically combining sharks with serial killers, because we have our villain, Tucker, who is a serial killer, and, basically his whole, like, objective in this movie is that he kills his victims by, like, bringing them onto his boat and then basically feeding them to sharks. That's honestly, like, a really interesting premise in my opinion, and yeah, honestly, I think they make very good use of it here. Like, like, as I already mentioned, Tucker and his whole objective, and we have the character of Zephyr, who is basically his latest victim that he's brought onto his boat, and well, since she's obviously the main character of the movie, she has no intentions whatsoever of being, like, his next star, because I should mention, when he feeds his victims to these sharks, he actually films it and all and stuff, as if he wasn't deserving enough, and, like, yeah, basically, she has no intention whatsoever of being next, so, like, throughout the movie, she's basically trying to, escape him and survive and stuff, Like, we've definitely seen some movies like this before where, like, our main character is trying to get away from this killer character. Like, a movie that definitely came to my head was the Christmas horror movie P2 with Rachel Nichols. If you've ever seen that movie, this movie kind of reminded me of that a bit. With our main character, this woman trying to get away from this deranged killer and stuff. And, like, I will say, this movie definitely makes for a really fun time. Like, obviously, I know this isn't going to be the kind of movie that's, like, going to be up for awards contenders and stuff. This movie pretty much just knows what it is, and it has fun with it. Like, it's definitely a very suspenseful movie, and, you're rooting for her to survive the whole time. Like, you're hoping throughout the movie that, she's able to take him out and escape. And, like, yeah, as I mentioned, it's a fun time, I think especially our main two cast members in Hassie Harrison and Jai Courtney, they definitely do a lot to, really make you engage with what's happening, yeah. Overall, this just makes for a very fun plot, and, like, if this movie sounds interesting to you, then I think you'll honestly have fun with it. Yeah, I thought they did a good job in just making this a really fun plot and stuff, yeah. I definitely really enjoyed this movie for what it was in terms of its plot, yeah. This was a fun time. And in terms of the film's narrative structure, obviously our main plot is that, like, Zephyr gets stuck on Tucker's boat and is trying to survive. That's kind of our main plot for sure, but, we have kind of some other stuff going on. We delve a bit into Tucker's character and basically his whole fascination with sharks, and, basically, how, like, he basically treats, like, his victims while he does them and stuff. Like, it does a good job of making you genuinely believe that Tucker really is, just such a deranged character. Like, couples with Jai Courtney's performance, you're able to really get engaged with it. And I mentioned already how, like, it also delves into Zephyr's character with basically her past struggles and stuff, and then how she kind of uses some of the skills she's learned to basically survive this. And you get engaged with her character a lot as well, especially couples with the performance from Hassie Harrison. You're rooting for her to survive. I thought, like, how that all connects together was really good. It just made for a very fun time. I know there's also the subplot with Zephyr and Moses and kind of their little love story that they have, which I thought was okay, but wasn't really an aspect that I cared about as much. Like, really, what I was interested in was, this main plot with Zephyr trying to escape from Tucker and stuff. Like, that was really, like, the gist of the narrative, and, like, overall, they did a really good job of just making it a very fun time. So, yeah, I overall thought the narrative structure was good in that respect. But yeah, overall, I can say that while not an amazing movie, Dangerous Animals is a fun time. There's good cinematography in it. There's two really good central performances in Hassie Harrison and Jai Courtney. And in terms of like this whole plot of like, you know, combining sharks with serial killers, it does a really good job of it. Like, it's not really the sharks, even though it is a shark movie, it's not the sharks that, you know, is the danger here. It's just this man and how deranged he is, and it honestly just makes for a fun time where you're rooting for the main character to survive. And yeah, even though it doesn't look like there's a 50th anniversary re-release of Jaws anywhere around the corner, I think this will do as a unique but fun way to celebrate Jaws being 50 years old, even if this movie is quite different to Jaws in terms of its premise, other than having sharks in it. But yeah, overall, I had a fun time with Dangerous Animals, and if this movie sounds like it'd be your cup of tea, I would say it is worth a watch for sure. So with all that said, I'm going to give Dangerous Animals a 7 out of 10. So with that, I'll see you guys next time, and bye.